How about Fannie and Freddie? What does the future look like for them in your eyes?
I've been a bit of a lightning rod on that subject over the years. I'm deeply in favor of formalized GSE reform, and I personally oppose just simply recap and release. And I think, quite frankly, any independent mortgage banker should feel the same way. I ran the single family business at Freddie Mac, and I saw what these companies did to chase market share in order to please their shareholders. And in order to do that, they gave the best deals to the largest lenders. Countrywide had the fast and easy loan as an exclusive from Fannie Mae. Wells Fargo had incredibly low guarantee fees from Freddie Mac, and the delta in G fee between large and small got as wide as about 15 basis points at its worst. That the same for credit terms and other things. So the reason why I support a legislative reform effort is I think these GSEs should be more like utilities. It should be a level playing field. It really doesn't matter what I think unless someone listens to me. But I do believe that the efforts right now are going to lead generally towards a recap and release. I know that Mark Calabria, as well as Treasury Secretary Mnuchin, have made comments over and over again about their desire to have a legislated support for any reforms that take place. I think the idea of getting legislation is pretty much a non-starter at minimum till after the election. And I quite frankly think it's going to be really hard for the administration to go through a recap and release process, at least in this term. And so if the president gets reelected, maybe they can work on it next term. But there's a lot of other priorities. I mean, we have a trade war going on. We have issues in North Korea and Iran that involve the Treasury Department and sanctions and other efforts. I think the idea that they're really spending a lot of time focusing on our little world of GSE reform when things are working pretty well, I think requires some pause from those in our industry to realize, the whole thing doesn't revolve around us right now. And my guess is that nothing really significant happens other than maybe a release of a paper, some directional language in terms of where they want to go. But actually getting there is probably a road too far, at least in the next few years.
Well, you mentioned that we are in a political cycle here as we've got a re-election coming up in the not too distant future. I want to touch on the CFPB and the role it has played under the Trump administration. Previously, it seemed to be a lot more active under President Obama. What do you think is at stake in terms of the CFPB and its influence and impact on the mortgage community, given Democrat or Republican ending up in office?
Yeah, it's interesting because the Bureau was staffed originally under Director Cordray, and a lot of that staff still remains. Kathy Kreninger, who's come in, I think she's done a good job overall. She's certainly a good communicator and smart. Even though she didn't know our industry all that well, she's really jumped in. And I've heard of her out there visiting, even dropping in on lenders who are going through CFPB audits just to see how it's going and talk to them. That's something that the previous regime did not do. I would caution everybody to be careful about what they think about temperament of whatever this administration has. Elections can change things, and I'm absolutely confident that if there's a shift in the presidency, whether it's in the next term or the following, that the Bureau will likely become more active in consumer protections, particularly if we go through into another recession where defaults start to rise again, because it's just going to raise the element of concern about consumers in trouble and what lenders are doing about it. So yep. I think the long view around quality, risk management, following the rules, keeping a really tight shop is the only way to operate, and not think that you can pop champagne bottles because in this moment of time, it may be perceived that things are more lenient. Quite frankly, I'm not sure they are more lenient, but nevertheless, I think we need to think about the Bureau as being there for the long term.
Yeah, so you're throwing caution to the wind for those people that think that the light is green when it comes to the CFPB.